Hi everyone, my name is Aaliyah, and in this video we are going to take a look at what happened on this day in the year 2001. So this is an event that happened just 20 years ago, and it is considered one of the most darkest days in the history of the music industry. A young woman who had her whole career ahead of her lost her life in extremely tragic circumstances. So today we are going to take a look at the life, the death and the legacy of the woman who would become known as the Princess of R&B music. And her name was Aaliyah. So who was Aaliyah? Aaliyah Dana Houghton was born on the 16th of January 1979 in Brooklyn, New York. She was the daughter of Diane and Michael Houghton. She had an older brother named Rashid. From a very early age, it was clear that Aaliyah had a talent for singing and performing. Her mother would take her to vocal lessons, and Aaliyah would perform at family weddings and charity events all across New York. When Aaliyah was in the 6th grade, she decided to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. Her family were very supportive of her ambitions. Her mother would take her to auditions, and her father would even act as her manager for many years. When Aaliyah was just 12 years old, she was signed to Blackground Records, and she would begin work on her first album, which was released in 1994 with the title Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. The album itself was a huge success, ultimately selling about 3 million copies and being certified as double platinum. But the title of the album would come under fire, especially when it was discovered that the then 15-year-old Aaliyah was involved in an illegal marriage with her producer, a man by the name of R. Kelly. Yeah, R. Kelly. We all know what's happening with him right now. The illegal marriage was eventually annulled by Aaliyah's parents. Afterwards, Aaliyah would break away from R. Kelly, and for the rest of her life she would never go into details about the sort of relationship she had with him. She avoided any questions relating to R. Kelly, and she never discussed him in private. So we can only speculate the true nature of their relationship. But considering the fact that she was only 15 years old at the time, and what is happening with this man right now, well, we can only speculate. That's all I'm saying about that. Thankfully for Aaliyah, she managed to break away from the scandal with R. Kelly. She would go on to sign with Atlantic Records, and she would work alongside artists Timbaland and Missy Elliott. They would help her produce her second studio album, which was released in 1996 with the title 1 in a Million. This was the album that certified Aaliyah's place in the music industry. The album would eventually go on to be certified as double platinum and is considered one of the greatest R&B albums to ever come out of the 1990s. During this time as well, Aaliyah would branch out in the entertainment industry. She wanted to see what else was available for her. If you're familiar with the 1997 Fox animation movie Anastasia, you will recognise Aaliyah as the singer behind the R&B version of the song Journey to the Past. I've listened to it, I really enjoyed it. She really puts her own sense of style into the song, so I would recommend going ahead and giving it a listen. Aaliyah would also break out into acting. She would star in the 2000 movie Romeo Must Die, and also had a leading role in the movie Queen of the Damned, which was eventually released in 2002. She was also due to star in the Matrix series, but unfortunately what happened on this day would put those plans to an end. In 2001, Aaliyah would release her third studio album with the simple title Aaliyah. It would go on to sell 3 million copies by the time of what happened on this day, and was also considered a great success. And please bear in mind, Aaliyah achieved all of this by the time that she was 22 years of age, which is just incredible. Now, despite of all this success, Aaliyah never lost sight of who she really was as a person. She still maintained a very close relationship with her family, and she always loved returning home to Brooklyn to see family members, to see friends, basically just return to her roots and remember who she was. Which brings us to what happened on this day in 2001. Aaliyah and her production team were in the Bahamas, where they were filming the music video for her upcoming single Rock the Boat. They had arrived in the Bahamas on the 23rd of August with plans to stay until the 26th. Now, filming for Rock the Boat actually finished earlier than anticipated, so Aaliyah and her team decided to return to the US a day earlier than planned. The plane that arrived to take them back was a Cessna 402. Now, this was a smaller plane to the one that had brought them to the Bahamas. The team were given the option of waiting for a larger plane, but by this time the team were tired, they didn't want to wait around any longer, they just wanted to go back home. So despite the worries of overloading, the pilot, who went by the name of Louis Morales III, eventually conceded and allowed the passengers on board. Now, please bear in mind, the Cessna 402 that was going to take them back to the US only had a capacity for 7 passengers, whereas there were 8 people waiting to go back to the US, including Aaliyah. Now, at this time, Aaliyah was asleep, having taken a pill. She wasn't very comfortable with flying. So, on the evening of this day in 2001, the plane would take off for the US. It only got about 200 feet away from the runway before it went into a nosedive and crashed and burst into flames. Aaliyah, the pilot, and 7 other people on board were all killed. The cause of death for Aaliyah was eventually determined to be a combination of severe burns, a blow to the head, severe shock, and a weakened heart. The pathologist would later say that Aaliyah had suffered such severe shock that even if she had survived the plane crash, recovery would have been next to impossible. Aaliyah was just 22 years of age when she died. Aaliyah's tragic death certainly struck the music industry a devastating blow. 800 mourners would attend her funeral on the 31st of August 2001. 22 white doves would be released at the end of the service, each one symbolising a year in her short life. Aaliyah was buried at Ferncliff Cemetery, a mausoleum in New York. Her father would eventually be buried next to her when he passed away in 2012. An investigation into the crash would determine that the plane had been overloaded with 700 extra pounds, or 320 kilograms. It was also determined that the plane had been carrying 1 more passenger than it was entitled to. The toxicology report of the pilot, Louis Morales III, would reveal that he had had cocaine and alcohol in his system at the time. It was also discovered that he had falsified documents in order to obtain his pilot license, so it's not clear if he was legally eligible to be flying an aircraft at the time of the crash. Aaliyah's parents and the families of the other victims would go on to sue Black Hawk International Airways for their negligence in charging the aircraft that crashed. They would eventually settle out of court for an undisclosed amount. The details of the court proceedings were never released to the public. In the aftermath of the plane crash, there was some speculation as to whether the music video for Rock the Boat would ever be released to the public. It would ultimately receive its world premiere on the 9th of October 2001. In the years following Aaliyah's death, 2 compilation albums would be released to the public. I Care For You in 2002 and Ultimate Aaliyah in 2005. Her family have since gone into discussions as to having her music released for streaming, which I think is a good thing. It will help release her music to a new generation of listeners. Aaliyah is still widely missed by the people who worked alongside her, the people who knew her, the people who loved her. She has been credited for helping to redefine hip-hop and R&B music in the 1990s. Her album One in a Million is still considered one of the greatest and most influential R&B albums to ever come out of the 90s. Many believe that Aaliyah could have gone on to have further success in her career, and I have to agree with that. We have to look at everything that she achieved by the time that she was 22 years of age. We can only imagine what she could have gone on to have in her career had her life not been tragically cut the way it was on this day. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys learned a little something from it. I know I certainly did. I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video, where I'll be discussing the release of what is considered the greatest movie of all time. I'm not going to say what it is. All I will say is that it was released in the 1940s and it centres around the story of Rosebud. You can have a little guess as to what that movie is. Until the next time, my name is Anya and we have just looked at what happened on this day.